As we inch closer towards the high school basketball season here in the state of West Virginia, there's still a couple more previews that I need to do. And we're joined now by a guest that is a friend of this program. I believe it's his third appearance on the show. Second year men's head basketball coach at Fork Union Academy in Virginia. And that is head coach Bob Williams. And he joins us now on Hoops Across the Mountain State. Coach Williams, how are you?
Hey, Taylor, great to be with you today.
My man, you guys are off to a good start so far. 4-1 this season. What are you liking about this team so far?
I'll tell you what, about a week ago, I didn't like them at all. And I didn't know if we could win any games. And then at this level, postgraduate basketball, we have pretty much a whole new team every year. So all of our guys are new this year. I'm the only one returning. So I'm the only one who knows the system and knows what they're doing. And then I got to teach these guys every year, everything. So it's like Groundhog Day again from last year. It's deja vu where we're teaching the basic fundamentals. Here's how we do our spacing. Here's how we jump to the basketball. Here's how we talk about screens. Here's how we close out. Here's how we defend the post. Here's how we run on offense. Here's how we execute screen. And so there's nobody back to demonstrate. I got to do all the demonstrations. So because I'm the only one who knows anything. But good group of kids now. They come together. If everybody buys in, they were all stars on their high school teams. So now this is their kind of their link year, their gap year in between high school and college. And we've had a lot of college coaches come in and watch us practice, and a lot of our guys already had recruitment coming here. And so that's their goal, is to get 1 year better, stronger, more exposure, and get ready for college. And that's what our job is to do. And then, but also at the same time, we've got to mesh a team to become a unit, one unit, play together, accept their roles, and play as a team. And they're starting to do that. The last two games have been much better. We won by 30 something last night. We hit 23 pointers. And so I like our size. I like our shooting, and we're starting to come together as a team.
Take me back a couple of minutes to what you just said, and that is a whole new roster for you. You're not really used to that because whenever you used to coach at Tech and your other stops as a head coach as well, you were able to go out, recruit guys, you were able to build them up, build your culture and stuff like that. Is that difficult now for you being a head coach, having to bring in a whole set of guys and having to go through the basics with them and have them know what's going on?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the hardest thing about coaching at this level. I've had a great school. Fork Union Military Academy is a great school, and we've got excellent administration, excellent heritage and legacy. I mean, like 500 guys have gone on to Division I from here, and 10 to the NBA. In football, post-grad football is sent 130 to the NFL, two Heisman Trophy winners, and then we've had Olympic swimmers and runners, and the founder of Under Armour went to school here. I mean, there's a lot of successful people have gone here. And Fletcher Arrett was the legendary coach. I think we talked about this last year. I was on your show. He's from Fayetteville, West Virginia, and he's coached here for 50 years. Passed away a year and a half ago. Great man. I got to be good friends with him, and just through recruiting and having coached and lived in Fayette County myself in West Virginia, we became friends, and I'm friends with his brother John Arrett. It's still, and so that's what attracted me to this job, is just the fact Fletcher Arrett was from West Virginia and did such a great job over the years. And he had dozens and dozens of great players from West Virginia come through here and then move on to really good schools and programs and success. And but it is, the hardest part is, I'm looking around, hey, where's my juniors and seniors to, kick some butt with these freshmen, and there's no one there. They're all freshmen. So it gets frustrating because they have so much to learn in a short period of time, and you only have them for 8 months, basically, 8 or 9 months, and at the end of the season they go home. And so 30 plus games, 35 games, by 40 maybe with postseason.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Second season for you at Fork Union. What's the biggest thing that you learned last season that you're now applying and you're starting to see play out in year number two for you?
The biggest thing that I've seen,
Yeah.
well, I'm learning about the level. I never coached on this level. I always coached at basically small college. And then this level, we're learning about our rivalries games. Hargrave Military Academy is their powerhouse in basketball, and Massanutten Military Academy. Fork Union went to the Sweet 16 last year at the national championships in Connecticut, and Hargrave went to the Elite Eight, and Massanutten went to the Final Four. And all three teams are ranked high in the top 10 last year, and good programs. And then so we started up a new league this year. It's called the Elite Prep League. It's the three Virginia military schools: Mount Zion out of Maryland, First Love, and Scotland campus out of Pennsylvania, along with Combine Academy in North Carolina. So it's a really good high level prep program or prep conference that can rival with the New England schools, and so we started that. So we're learning about the rivalries. Next week we go to Connecticut. We'll play Brewster Academy. They got three guys already signed to Connecticut, Tennessee, and Florida State. And then it's probably some really good juniors and sophomores as well. And then we'll play Putnam Science out of Connecticut in the first game. They went 38-0 last year and won the national championship. And that's our first game next Friday up in Connecticut at the National Prep Showcase with all the top programs in the country. And so these are the things that I've learned, about these programs, and I've heard of them, of course, and but learn more about them in depth and learn about the players and the style, and then I've had to adjust to, here at West Virginia Tech, at Glenville State, we recruited and then they graduated and moved on to regular jobs. And once in a while, you'd have a guy go play overseas. But here, you're recruiting, and then at the end, we got to place them in college scholarships, And so recruiting, and then there's even more pressure probably in my job to place them in places from their families and from the administration here. And then we got to do that and then recruit a whole new team. And all the while, as long as they keep scoring, you're trying to win the games too. And it's not just about exposure, but, we're trying to win for Fork Union too.
One guy, speaking of players, one guy that you have on your roster this year is a West Virginia native. You're only West Virginia native, in Zane McCarty, George Washington graduate. He was a former guard for head coach Rick Green. What are you kind of seeing from Zane so far this season?
Well, Zane being only about 6 foot, maybe 6'1", he's got to play the point in college. He played some off the ball. I know his senior year he did at GW for Coach Green, but he's been a combo, point and a two, and we're still playing him at both. He started last night at the point for us. Played a really good floor game. He had a couple threes in the game before that one. He's not scoring a ton, but he's playmaking. He's an elite defensive player. He's really, really good defensively. Applies a lot of ball pressure on the point guards and really helps our team defense. And then he pushes the ball well. He passes it well. And he's capable of knocking down open threes, and he's got a very good mid-range pull-up game, and he's good at he's very, very quick with the ball in his hands, and he can get downhill and get to the rim and score with either hand. He's been very good, and we really like him. A lot of colleges like him and have asked about him. And I've known Zane and his family since he was in middle school, and my son Robbie, played with his brothers in high school, and but it's a great family, basketball family. His dad, Tommy, played at Marshall and was a great player, I think, at Parkersburg Catholic also. And but Zane, great to have Zane this year. We tried to get 3 or 4 other guys from West Virginia, and we weren't able to do it this time. But we'll continue to go back to the Mountain State, and a lot of good players there. And at your event up in Morgantown, there was a lot of good players, so we're tracking some of those guys. And we'd love to get more than one this year from West Virginia on our roster for 23-24.
Talk about recruiting for you. Obviously, we've already mentioned the elephant in the room of getting new guys in, shoveling them in and out consistently on a year-to-year basis. You're having new guys come in each and every year. What are those conversations like when you do go into a meeting or a discussion with a recruit, knowing that they're only going to be there for a short period of time?
Well, one thing I found out since I was here since last year is it's a very popular route. And I told my athletic director, I said, man, we got just get a ton of calls. He goes, oh, you're going to screen 400 or 500 players, that are going to come your way. They're recommended to you or contacting you, or the coaches are, the families are. So we get a lot of interest. And I think part of that interest too has been magnified because of the NCAA going with the transfer portal so heavily now, and everybody got a lot of players got an extra year of eligibility the last couple of years, and still going on this year. Um, so because of COVID, so that really has, a lot of high school kids were under recruited last year. It was amazing how many good high school players there were in the state of Virginia that were getting under recruited. D1 kids were getting recruited by D2s, and really good D2 players, were only getting D3 recruitment. And so there's good players available. But yeah, so we'll continue to work at the recruiting. And it's very important that we find the right fit. Since we're a Christian boys boarding military school, and grades 7 through 12 with post-grad basketball and football. And so we have to have the right kids and the right attitude. The family has to be committed to sending their kid to Fork Union. And it's not always going to be free either. It's, the families are going to have to pay some money to come here. And we do have scholarships. Most of our scholarships are partials. And so, it's a commitment from a family and from a player to come here, be a cadet and play basketball. But it's a huge benefit. And it's not easy going through it because you're waking up every day and you put the military uniform on, and you're getting up early in the morning, 6:30, and you're raising the flag in the morning colors. And then you're going to classes, and they're taking 4 classes while they're here. And but it's and then in the evening, you got your practices, and then dinner, and then you got retreat, you're taking the flag down, and then you got study time, mandatory study time in the barracks, and then you have lights out at 10 o'clock. We're playing taps at 10 o'clock, and we got lights out, and you're back up at them the next day early. So they're gaining focus, discipline, academics, and hopefully playing good basketball. It's good competition and getting better in basketball. But it's not for everybody, and there's it's not easy. It's in some ways it's easy to recruit here, but in other ways it's not, because there's so many basketball academies out there nowadays, and there's so much competition. There's so many private schools, high schools that recruit and have scholarships, and a lot of times the best players get gobbled up by their freshman and sophomore years at these big time private high schools around the country. And then so in some ways we're not able to get that high level, high D1 player that would go to West Virginia or Kentucky like we used to back in the 1990s. But back then there wasn't as many basketball academies, in private schools. So there's challenges to it, yes.
And then finally, when you look at the rest of the season for you all, you guys have played 5 games so far, 4-1 on the season. You mentioned how it's a long stretch of games for you all, including against a lot of quality competition as well. What are some of your expectations and things that you guys need to improve on that you've seen need picked up on through the first 5 games?
Well, we're a pack line team defensively. I'd like to see us be more consistent in our gap coverage. If you're in a gap and you're one pass away from the ball, your job is to force the next pass, not give up dribble splits and drives to the hoop. We try to put a wall around the paint and force the next pass. I think we're still working on our transition offense. We're trying to get our guys to not be selective runners. Don't run only when you think you might get the ball. Run all the time, hard all the way 94 feet, all the way to the baseline, because it wears the opponent down. It makes them have to run. And then it opens up space for our point guard pushing the ball. And those are a couple of things. Half court execution has gotten better in the last week tremendously. We try to establish an inside game, get paint touches, and then we made 23 pointers last night in the win, and so we have some shooters, and guys just got to be willing to share the ball, because they were all their best players on their high school teams. And now some guys, everybody has to accept a role. Everybody's a role player now. Those are some things. Transition defense. Last night, I thought we jogged back a little bit after we scored. we had a big lead, instead of sprinting back with a sense of urgency and getting turned around quick. Just things like that 18 and 19-year-olds, you have to stay on them about playing hard all the time and never take possession off and never take anything for granted.
Well, it seems like there's going to be a lot of running in the next couple of days leading up to your next game. So practice may be difficult for your team. So knowing you, that's definitely the truth.
Well, we try to make the practices harder so the games come easier, and it's important.
Absolutely. Well, Coach Williams, it's good speaking with you. Good luck the rest of the way this season, and just overall success along the way. So good luck.
Taylor, always good talking to you. Known you since you were just a little guy in shy ball, I think, and you do a great job with everything that you do in West Virginia. Continued well wishes to you and my best to your family.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Coach. And up next, we'll talk with Brett Rector, the Salem men's head basketball coach, here on episode 126 of Hoops Across the Mountain State. Welcome back into episode 126 of Hoops Across the Mountain State. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. Thank you all for joining me. You can follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7 for all the latest about the show, on Twitter as well. And let's just keep the trend going. Guys that continue to come back, guys that really continue to accept the invitation that I send out. Sometimes I'm just like, they're busy, or, they're big time now. I'm not there yet, but, these guys are big time. One of the guys that I have on right now, as you can see, is head coach Rector from Salem. And, just had to drop in an invitation. Happy that he accepted it. Well, let's bring him in now. Coach, how are you?
I'm great, man. I'm always excited to talk to you. And every time you text me and we can talk a little Salem Tiger hoops, man, I'm all about it.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start the same way I started with Coach Williams. I had Bob Williams on in my first segment, but I'll ask you this. What are you liking? What are you seeing from this year's Salem team?
I think coming off of year one for me here, we're just trying to build off of what we did in year one. And we've got some good momentum going. We were able to win 20 games last year at Salem, which was the first time since 2006. And that was kind of one of the things when, I took the job was, hey, can we get it back to kind of how it used to be? The basketball tradition here is unbelievable. And, we have some good, guys coming back that were big parts of our team last year. Particularly Rodney Smith, Stan Smith, Capone Barley played a bunch for us as a freshman last year. So just having those guys back that kind of know what I expect is great. And then we got Riley Hetherington, that's actually from my hometown of Ravenswood, and I coached him at the University of Charleston when I was an assistant there, and so I almost count him as a returner. So I'm just excited about those guys, and then we've got a bunch of newcomers that are very, very talented that I think are slowly but surely going to figure it out for us and allow us to have the depth that we need to have another great year.
Yeah, let's go down that route, because I was going through the numbers and I was going through your statistics from last year. 5 of your top 7 scorers from last season are no longer with you. That accounts for 69% of your total points are gone from last year's squad, including Fonz Hale, who is now playing at Fairmont State for head coach Tim Koenig. But Coach, let's just start there then. When you have a big chunk of your total productivity from a season ago leave, how difficult is it to try and create something new with some fresh guys and some guys that might not have seen the floor a lot last year, and now you're trying to get them into the mix? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're, obviously going to rely heavily on, Rodney and Stan to kind of pick up, some of the scoring slack, which, again, those guys averaged double figures for us last year. But, we had 2 guys in TJ Howard and Fonz Hale that both averaged 20-plus points per game last year, that were just tremendous scorers of the basketball. I mean, those guys, for our level they can put it in the hole. So we're obviously losing those guys, and, we lost a couple of our big guys. So, I think we kind of, in recruiting, I think we have signed some guys that can kind of fill those voids for us. I think our front court probably has more depth than it had last year. I think we're a little bigger. But again, it's just I think in college basketball now, just the continuity piece is probably not there for a lot of people. So just these guys figuring out concepts and figuring out kind of their niche as fast as they possibly can is going to be beneficial for us. But I really like where we're at, and the guys have been super coachable, and that's about all you can ask.
You were a guard in your heyday of playing basketball, including your time over in Ravenswood, but you mentioned that depth in your front court. What do you like about that? I mean, I would assume going into the bulk of your season, I should say, and going up against other MEC schools when you kick off your season, that depth is really going to help you out. What are you liking about this depth so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was an area, in recruiting that we knew we needed to add, and I think, last year, Darius Bell, Baron Tanner, some of those guys were really good for us. Darius was a great leader, but we just didn't have as many as we needed. And I think now we can, as a coach, you want to be able to play big, you want to be able to play small, you want to have that versatility in your lineups. And I think, we have 2 or 3 guys that are just big physical 5 men. We also have some kind of tweener guys that are in that, 6'5" to 6'7" mode that can dribble it and make plays and pass and catch and defend. And so we just have, probably 5 or 6 of those type of guys this year, where last year, we might have had 2 or 3, and so I think that's now figuring out how to play them all is I guess, part of my job that's going to be tricky. But at the same time, I really feel good about, the versatility we can play, with the 4 and the 5s that we have.
When you talk about these new guys and mixing them in with your returners as well, what's that energy level? What's been that camaraderie been like between your returners compared to your new guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I rely, heavily upon the guys that have been here to, sometimes I almost put it on them. Hey, Rodney, can you please tell so-and-so that we don't do that, or whatever. Hey, tell so-and-so this is how I would like that to be done. And so it just kind of gives, our returners that ownership opportunity and that leadership opportunity. And so I try to do that a lot. And I also think that's why it's so important for us to find not only talented guys, but guys that are coachable, and so some of these newcomers we have, I mean, we got 3 or 4 Division II transfers that, Justin, I mean, he played at Oklahoma Baptist. They won 20-some games. He's a post player, and he's really good. And so they've played in very high level. Mark Anthony Fidelis averaged double figures at Lock Haven in the PSAC. Marcus Friend played at Mansfield. Fope played at Roberts Wesleyan. So we're getting these older guys that have a lot of Division II experience, and they've been successful at this level. So I think just them being coachable is a huge piece of it, because, hey, just because you played a certain way at another school, well, we may not do that here. So you got to bring your, talents and things that you do well and fit it into our system.
How is your foundation? How is your philosophy starting to grow and be attached to these guys? Because this is still only your second year. How are you starting to see what you're trying to do rub off on your guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think, people always say that, the head coach and the point guard, best player, they can't have a bad day, at practice. And so I try to approach it that way. And I think, I've said it probably 1,000 times that, one of the best compliments you could ever get is that you're the same person every day. And so I try to be that way. And, the 2-3 hours we're in practice, I want to be fully present and give them everything I got. And hopefully they do the same thing in turn, and so I think it starts with me. And I think, my energy and my preparation level and all that is paramount, and they're going to follow suit with whatever I'm doing, so I think just being that same person every day and really being prepared and trying to show these guys the right way to do things is super important.
Let's talk about a few of your guys, including a guy that you've already mentioned, Riley Hetherington, a University of Charleston transfer, Ravenswood guy as well. What are you seeing from Riley that's being helpful so far with the season so far?
I think it was a lot like we talked about this last year when you asked me a question about, leadership or whatever. And I told you Darius Bell, and he might not, he was our probably 5th, 6th, 7th leading scorer, whatever he was. But just, hey, he played at South Carolina Aiken, and he'd been through it, and he knew exactly how it was supposed to look. And so I think Riley is in that same mold where He's played on great teams at Charleston, played for Mick, obviously at Ravenswood. And so the thing that I'm most excited about to see from him is that, I saw him when he was a little kid, when he was a freshman in high school, and then was able to recruit him, and he, played at Charleston. And just to see his maturity level as a person is like, it's crazy, just to, I'll give you an example. We had preseason meetings, and, I asked all those guys at the end, hey, give me, who's a couple guys we have on our team that you would say are leaders? And nearly every guy in our program said Riley. And so I just think that he's made such great strides just in the type of person he is, and just his leadership qualities. And he just knows the game. His basketball IQ is as good as maybe anybody I've ever coached. He just knows where to be, and he's a great passer. And so I think he's going to have a really good year for us.
Having a guy like him that knows who you are, not only as a coach, but as a person as well, do you think that makes your team a whole lot better since he knows what you are expecting?
Yeah, 100%. I think I rely on him. I ask him questions that are probably, I would almost consider advanced or deeper questions, you know what I'm saying? Or hey, give me your thoughts on, there's times I ask him, hey, we're getting ready to put in a concept the other day, and I said, hey, am I missing something? Is there anything else that you can think of that pertains to this concept? And he gave me something. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So he's almost like a coach on the floor for us this year. And I think he's done a great job. Also, just, he's kind of new to our program and just kind of bringing guys together. He's done a great job with that.
Let's talk about Rodney Smith as well. He averaged right around 11 points for you, averaged 5 rebounds as well. Having a guy like him back, he started all 25 games that he played in. What does he mean for this team moving forward? Since, again, he's like Riley, he knows who you are on and off the court. What does this mean for your team moving forward?
He's another one, man. I can't say enough good things about that kid. He's the same person every day. He brings it every day. We just, I'm telling you, last year, we just relied on him to guard the best player from the other team. He played, sometimes at the point for us, sometimes at the 2, bring the ball up the court, score. Just literally everything you can think about that you would want from a basketball player, we asked him to do it, and so I think he's just almost like a security blanket for me. I just feel like, he's never going to get rattled. He's always going to make the right play. He's a great leader. And so I love him to death. And I'm really looking forward to kind of a breakout year. We're expecting really, really big things from him. Scoring, passing, defending, the whole deal, leadership. I think we're kind of going to go as a team as he goes.
Let's talk about your schedule, because you have an interesting schedule, in my opinion. You're playing 4 Mountain East Conference schools, and you're actually kicking off the 22-23 season playing Glenville State and then Fairmont State as well before you guys get into the bulk of your schedule. What was the reasoning behind scheduling a couple of these Mountain East Conference schools?
Yeah, I think for people that aren't super informed about, we're Division II, right? And so we're in the Atlantic region with the Mountain East, the Pennsylvania Conference, the CIAA, and then also in Division II, the way it works is if the states touch, so like we play some GMAC teams. Well, a lot of those teams are in Ohio, and those count as regional games for us. And so we're trying to get as many regional games as we possibly can. And so, again, it's just, where we're independent. I think, we make the national tournament the same way that any of those teams, Mountain East, PSAC, CIAA do, but we just don't have the built-in conference games. So it's definitely beneficial for us to play as many Mountain East, PSAC, CIAA teams as we can. And then, we're also playing, some other conferences count as regional games for us that are Division II, such as the GMAC. We're playing Ohio Dominican, Tiffin, Lake Erie. We're also playing Lincoln Memorial, Virginia Union. So some of the travel is going to be a little bit rough. But again, I think, I wanted to give our guys the best chance to play the better teams, in the region, and, put ourselves in a position to hopefully win 20 games and make a run at the national tournament.
And finally, walk me through this. What in your opinion was the biggest thing that you learned last year in your first season? Because this is the same question I asked Coach Williams, but what was the biggest thing that you learned in your first season that can be applied this season and throughout the rest of your tenure with Salem?
Man, that's a great question. I think it just goes back to probably There's a lot of things that I look back on last year and I just didn't do a very good job, and I don't think it was for lack of effort. It just, it's a lot like probably, when you have a baby, people can tell you whatever they want, but until that baby comes, you don't necessarily know what all that entails, and so there was probably some things last year that, man, we got into some games and we just weren't really prepared for, and so my goal this year is that, hey, we got to practice better. Hey, we got to, we spent time today. We spent 10 minutes at the end of practice on special situations. Okay, there's 4 seconds to go. We got to go full court. There's 8 seconds to go. We're side out of bounds. And just trying to throw as much as I can at our guys. And so when it happens in a game, hey, guys, remember in practice we did this the other day. All right, and we can execute it. So here it is. And we draw it up, and now they're prepared for it. They've at least seen it and done it. So I think just trying to check all those boxes, because there's nothing worse, as a coach, you get in a situation and you feel like your team's not prepared because you haven't prepared them. And so that's probably the biggest thing for me is that, I'm trying to get these guys as prepared as I possibly can.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and good luck the rest of the way this season.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That will conclude episode 126 of Hoops Across the Mountain State with our two guests, head coach Bob Williams and head coach Brett Rector as well. Follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7 and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify as well. Next week, I'll start my girls basketball previews, so you will not want to miss that. Then following that will be our boys basketball previews as well. You won't want to miss everything. So again, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you all then. This has been Hoops Across the Mountain State.